Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Spotlight. This is, of course, our show where we talk to folks in the pop culture space who make our dreams come true with all the fun, awesome stuff they do. And my goodness, I am with a winner this evening. This is a guy whose career goes back many, many decades. He's written for any superhero character that I can think of. I'm sitting down and talking to Mark Waid. Mark, good evening. How are you today?
I'm okay. I'm just busy making dreams come true.
Oh,
So
look at that. You see, I set
yeah,
it up and you knocked it down. Good deal. Well, it's a big thrill to have you here. And you and I met just a couple of months ago here in Michigan
yeah.
at Motor City Comic Con, and you were gracious. I was chatting with you and your fiance at the time. Has the wedding happened yet? Did I miss
Oh
that?
no, no, no. We're taking our sweet time there. But I
Good
mean,
for you. Good for you.
but we're
She
I found my soulmate and vice versa. So
I'm
she
so
said
glad. She seems like
she
such a
says
nice lady.
hello,
So
by the
that's
way. So
that's
yeah,
awesome. Well, hello back to Brandy. But let's get the ball rolling. Tell me how you got
sure,
started in the business.
man. I got started doing a couple of things. One of them is working in freelance comics journalism. Back in the day, there were fanzines published,
Yeah.
actually published as opposed to posted online,
Yeah.
and doing a lot of interviews with those, to talking to writers, talking to editors, getting connections made that way. I was also the guy at I was just the volunteer at conventions who would be the one to, take you to and from the airport and, make sure you had what you needed. And that also
Yeah.
allowed me to make some connections with people. So once I got to be known a little bit and working in comics journalism, I was an editor at a magazine called Amazing Heroes for a little while, and that got me DC's attention. Went up there as an editor for a couple of years in the late '80s. Left there, and I've just been very lucky ever since. I'm grateful every day that I have not had to pick up a phone since then.
Man, that's awesome.
Very
Yeah.
incredibly lucky. Yeah.
Now, thinking about DC, and again, forgiveness. I do reading, and I hate if I read something in Wikipedia that's incorrect, so I'm going to blame them.
Yeah.
But a statement that they make in there is that you have been quoted as tying back a singular influence as the blueprint of
This
everything I've ever written.
makes me insane. I
Oh
once
well,
said
I'm
it,
I am
not
so
your fault.
glad
No,
I
no, no,
teed
no, no,
that
no.
up
Not your
just
fault. And
to
I try
protect
to take it,
myself.
try to take it out of Wikipedia and people put it back in. There was one time in one interview I said, here is a story that was incredibly influential to me. And
Okay.
somehow that has become the centerpiece of my entire Wikipedia entry.
Well,
So
we'll scrub that part and we'll focus on the it was influential to me. So that's Adventure Comics 369 370 from
yeah,
1968, the two-part Legion of the Superheroes by Jim Shooter, rest in peace, and
yeah.
Weisinger.
Mort
That
Weisinger, editor. Yeah.
yeah, Weisinger, sorry, that introduced the villain Modru.
Mordru. Yeah.
Modru thing. I'm a Marvel guy. I'm so sorry. So I
All
do
right.
stumble
Okay.
over the DC
That,
stuff
but
sometimes.
that's all right. But
I say
yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say, I don't have any familiarity with that story. I've not read it. I probably can and
You
should
could
now.
probably find it.
But
It's a great
yeah,
little story. It
tell me
is
about it. Tell me why it means so much to you.
it means to me on a couple level. What basically plot structure. Plot structure on this thing is flawless because it is essentially we open in the 31st century with Superboy as a member of the Legion of Superheroes, and
Yeah.
we open with them on the run. They've accidentally unleashed this sorcerer named Mordru the Merciless, who've been kept under lock and key for some time now because he was so incredibly powerful. We don't even get to see what his previous battle with the Legion was. All we know is that they are terrified of him. And if Superboy is afraid of you, then that is bad.
Yeah, right.
Um, and that also struck me as a kid. Like that's a villain that Superboy is afraid. I was like 6, 7 years old. Oh, that's villain that Superboy is afraid of. That's scary.
Yeah.
Um, so that opens up with them doing that, fleeing back to the 20th century, where Superboy is there in Smallville and uh, taking up hiding, trying to come up with some sort of strategy. It's only four Legionnaires. That's all we got now because everybody else is off planet or not dealing with it. These four have been targeted. They're on the run, trying to come up with a strategy against Mordru. And the story, it's a two-part story. So in the first part of the story, what I love about it, and I've copied this structure over and over again, is that by the end of Act One, they're in Smallville. And during Act Two, something else happens that is involving them that has nothing to do with Mordru, that is a conflict resolution sort of thing that happens that makes you so involved that you forget, like the Legion did, that Mordru is out there watching. And so when he shows up on the very last page in a big full page shot, it
Mm.
blew my mind when I was a kid. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I totally forgot that he was,
Yeah.
and so it's that was just great structure. It's great. It's interesting characterization at a time when at DC Comics, every character spoke exactly the same, and any random issue of Justice League, you could mix up the word balloons, and it wouldn't matter
Right.
who was saying what. And Jim
Right.
Shooter came along and gave these characters a personality.
Yeah. Yeah. Boy, Shooter, and he's somebody who I've met him. I met him a couple of times
Yeah,
here in Grand Rapids. We have a show that back when they had decent guests, which they don't anymore. Jim was a guest. This was probably 6 or 7 years ago. He had a terrible head cold at the time, but I think I walked him from one panel to another just because I
yeah,
was in cosplays doing GI Joe and talked to him about that. And yeah, he was a legend that lived large. If you loved him, if you hated him, I feel like people respected him
yeah,
because of things that he accomplished.
yes,
So
absolutely.
I yeah. So okay, the 1990s. So
Mhm.
I'm a Gen Xer. Was born in the late 70s, grew up in the 80s, started reading Marvel at that time. But in the 90s, I was in college and still reading comics.
Mhm.
So Captain America, you did I have a couple of I have a couple of signed copies of your Captain
Awesome.
America that my friend Kurt, who is another journalist who
Mhm.
you were chatting with there at Motor City, got for me a long time ago, and I framed and put up because I love Cap so much. You did the Amalgam comics.
Yeah,
A few issues of that, which are absolutely terrific. But the brass ring, the big one, and this is what you autographed for me when we met was Kingdom Come from DC.
yeah,
It is a story that it's an epic for the ages. I wrote that down for myself. Tell me about where that came from. Like
sure.
how did it evolve?
It actually came. All right, so this is on the heels of Marvel's doing a project called Marvels,
Right, I
for where
remember. Yeah.
Alex Ross and Kurt Busiek, and that was Alex Ross's big debut in
Right.
comics, as
I
and
was just getting out of high school when that
right,
dropped.
and so DC, of course, he wanted, he loved doing he did Marvels, and now he comes over to DC. He wants to do something with DC, and he loves those characters, especially the Golden Age and Silver Age characters, which is weird.
Sorry about that little interruption. All right, we were talking about Kingdom Come.
Yeah. So Alex decided he wanted to come over to DC and do some characters. We both loved those characters. And he came to DC with some sketches and a really rough pitch about what if Superman retired and younger heroes were not up to the task, and what does that turn into? And there's a little more than that to it. But we sat down and we had lunch with the editors at DC. I was sitting there with them. They brought me along. Alex didn't know me or my work, but people knew me at DC as the guy who knows all the history. So that's the guy you want for a project that is going to cover hundreds of characters. And
Right.
sitting there with Alex, I had some thoughts and some ideas, and we started knocking ideas back and forth. Went out to his place for a long weekend early on in the process and knocked some plot ideas around. And then it just grew into what it was. I mean, like the spark was Alex's, and then the two of us worked together to create something that I'm pleased to say 30 years later still seems to be holding up for people.
Yeah. Oh God, absolutely. Yeah. I'm even though you signed that for me and I very carefully put it back on the shelf, but I need to pull her out and read her again because it's been a couple of years. But I was pretty active in the last few years as a costumer, and with this gray hair, I got that Superman suit from a
Mm.
vendor somewhere.
Ah, right, yeah.
I have a great DC photo session that I did here in downtown Grand Rapids. It was in October, so it was pretty chilly. But I had a shirt very much like this one on underneath to cover the shoulders because it was pretty chilly. But yeah, that's my Superman. That's
Cool.
old and grumpy. Yeah, no, I
Thank you.
absolutely love that stuff. So, all right. So tilting back to Marvel. I'm
Mhm.
a Marvel zombie.
Sure.
Sorry, but my former partner and I, and it was his idea, read your 2000s run of Fantastic Four
Mhm.
before seeing First Steps this past summer, and it was probably the best FF I've read since John Byrne, and I'm
Thank
a
you.
disciple of John Byrne in the '80s. But tell me about and I don't have it right in front of me. The run it started around issue 60, I think, of that volume. And how long did
Right.
you run for?
About 3 years, so about 36, 37 issues, somewhere along in
Okay,
there. Uh,
gotcha.
and it was just a ball. I mean, first off, I was
Yeah,
working with Michael Ringo, who was an
yeah,
artist who was also a dear friend and was an amazing artist. And it was a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be, to tell you the truth. I got the call from editor Tom Brevoort asking me if I was interested, and I had to tell him at the time that of all of the Marvel properties, of all the Marvel characters, the Fantastic Four are the ones I like the least. And it wasn't their fault. It wasn't, I respected the Fantastic Four, but I had no skin in the game, and it is for a very specific reason, and that is because when my parents got a divorce when I was a young kid, my mother and my father and new stepmother took me on like a cruise with them as part of their honeymoon package or whatever, me and my
Oh
sister.
God.
And I don't know what a 11-year-old enjoys on a cruise, but it's not like now. It's not like they had water slides and stuff. It was a bunch of
Right.
people playing baccarat, whatever.
Oh
So
boy.
um and I'm desperate for comics, any fix whatsoever. And I'm thinking, I'm bummed, the divorce, all this stuff. I find a little store in somewhere in Jamaica that sells comics. It has like
Wow.
3 comic books on the stand, and the first one, and it's a Fantastic Four comic. And I'm excited. Something I've not read Fantastic Four yet, but I'll pick it up. I picked it up for my escape from all of this divorce trauma and all
Yeah.
that. And the last page of it ends with Sue filing for divorce.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
so
What?
that was it for me in the FF for a long time. That was um so when Tom called, I'm like, yeah, I've read Fantastic Four stories, but I was not a super fan. But he said, just go think about these characters some. And so I did. And I started thinking about, okay, well, everybody likes Ben and everybody likes Johnny, and a lot of people like Sue, and nobody likes Reed, unless you're 50. But most younger readers didn't really care much for Reed. So
Right.
let me focus in on that guy. What can we do with him? And that evening I was watching Buckaroo Banzai, the
Oh
movie.
God, such a classic.
And that suddenly crystallized everything in my head. Not the wackiness so much, but the idea that Reed is a one of a kind mind, the kind that only comes around once in every 100 years, and the rest of the team is there to do their own thing, have their own lives, but their real mission is to support him so that they can all do what they do, which is adventure. Like they are in.
Right.
It's like there's a famous story about Yo-Yo Ma, that he was a brilliant cellist, but he like couldn't make sandwiches or whatever. Like he was no good in the kitchen. And so,
Yeah.
the idea of being the person who fed Yo-Yo Ma, like that's an honor because without you, they die. Without you, there is no music. So it's not to make the FF subservient to him so much as they're his partners, and their job is to sort of buffer the rest of the world from, against, so that Reed can do what he does. And
Yeah.
once I sort of had that in mind and started thinking about all the other characters, then it really clicked. And so within a couple of days, I was able to turn in a big, huge, long manifesto to Tom Brevoort about here's who I think the characters are, here's the kind of stories I want to tell. And it ended up being some of the most fun I've ever had in comics.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Good stuff. Other experiences writing Marvel that jump out at you.
Um,
Whether it's around that time later on. I mean, yeah, yeah, I mean, toss me a nugget.
well, sure. I mean, I'm working on Spider-Man for a little while was very cool. I was working with
But that's my
the
number one.
the
Yeah.
Webhead group where it was me and Joe Kelly and Mark Guggenheim and Bob Gale
Yeah.
and Zeb Wells, people like that. Uh,
Yeah.
and is able to introduce J. Jonah Jameson's father, J. Jonah Jameson Sr., which was the
Yeah.
high water mark in my Marvel career.
Yeah.
And then they killed him off.
Oh.
Um, but
Oh,
being able to work on Daredevil for 3 years, I work with a murderer's row of talent, Marcos Martin and Pablo Rivera and Chris Somney and so many other people. And
yeah.
I love doing that book. I I had so much invested in Matt Murdock at that point. I love that character more than any other Marvel character.
Yeah.
Um, and I was just lucky to be able to do it in the style I felt like I was best at, which was not doing Frank Miller again, because Frank Miller was great. But if I'm
Right.
going to do Frank Miller, the best I can do is be not as good as Frank Miller.
Yeah.
So
That's valid. Yeah.
why do that? Why don't I just do the sort of superhero stuff that I do that seems more lighthearted because the art is a little less dark and grim. But if you look at my Daredevil run, it's plenty dark. There's
Yeah.
some really dark stuff that happens, and the reason I think it reads a little lighter is because it's not that dark things don't happen to Matt. It is that Matt reacts to them a little differently
Yeah.
than just going and spiraling further and further into depression. So,
Yeah.
but that was an exceptional opportunity, and when let the history book state that when all is said and done, I had a longer consecutive run on Daredevil than any writer, any artist, any letterer, any colorist, or any editor ever had.
Wow.
So
Nice.
that
Good
that
deal.
take that, Chip Zdarsky. But yeah, yeah,
Zing. How do you feel about the Daredevil Born Again? There was just a trailer drop
r-
today. Did you check it
really,
out?
yeah, I really like it.
Yeah.
I like the new iteration. I didn't the Netflix stuff was a little too dark for me,
Yeah,
but
literally. We are never watched a
yeah,
show without the lights off,
yeah, no,
because it was
exactly.
like
You
the
have
Game of
to.
Thrones. It was so dark. Yeah,
Exactly. This I liked. I like the tonal about it. Look, it doesn't have to match my tone for me to like it. Like that's the thing. It is still very dark, very grim, but I love him as
yeah.
Matt Murdock. I think he's great. I'm down with it.
Yeah. Awesome. Good deal. That was just kind of a spur of the moment
Yeah.
question. So back at DC, you're extremely well known for Superman, and that's going to factor into my next question. But outside, but you've also touched, my God, every other character I can possibly think of.
Yeah.
What's a character? And again, I'm kind of doing this off the top of my
Yeah.
head. But what's a character that maybe you feel you have something to add that you haven't done yet?
There isn't one. Seriously,
But I love it. I love that answer because I believe you.
I've hit every. I bet there's stuff I could come up with that it give you some new insights on a bunch of different characters that I haven't had a long run with. But I have
Yeah.
been lucky enough, both at Marvel and DC, to writing their team books, writing these solo books. I don't think there's any character. I've never written a Thor story. I've never
Okay.
written that. Maybe I've never written. I was going to say Wonder Woman. No, I wrote a Wonder Woman story. I don't. I think that's it. I'm
Yeah.
very again. I've just been very lucky to be in the right place at the right time.
I love it. Good deal. Ever wrote a Peacemaker story? He's right over my shoulder here. I love that show, by the way.
I
So
do, oh God, I love that show. I not written a Peacemaker story, but I did put him in Justice League
yeah.
in the upcoming
Uh,
months. Yeah,
that's fantastic. All right. Before I get into asking about kind of what you're working on right now,
yeah,
this is gonna be a new gold standard for me when I interview people like you. Desert Island question.
sure.
Somebody ends up on a desert island and you have to pick 3 story arcs or even a single issue of your work for them to have. Now, it could be some stuff we already talked about, but maybe it's not. But
Sure.
what would it be?
It'd be my Fantastic Four run, I
Yep.
think. I think it would be a mini series that I did with Barry Kitson many years ago called Empire, which
Okay.
is in and out of print. Comes in and out of print. We're going to do another Kickstarter for that thing later on this year to collect it. It was about 20 years old, and
What
by the look on your
Yeah,
face, I can
I've
tell
not
you've
heard
never
of it.
heard of it.
Tell
That's
me.
okay.
No, 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 tell
Um,
me.
it's I'm very proud of it. It is 8 issues in and out. It is set in a near future, possible near future. It is a world in which the bad guys won, in which the guy who is basically the Doctor Doom of this world, if you will, he
Okay.
won. He
Well,
won. And but the problem is now he's got to keep things moving. He's got to, so it's a political intrigue on a supervillain level. The supervillains have won. It is a story about the court of the Borgias. It is a story about watching these villains not, try not to eat each other alive in their quest
oh
for
man.
power.
Is it
Uh,
Marvel, DC, something
it's
else?
it we it was creator owned. It was published by DC first time, and then we got the
Okay.
rights back, and so it's been in print a few times over the years.
Gotcha.
Um,
So if it's DC, what so we're with DC characters or something
no, just
something
brand new. It was
original?
completely, creator owned, brand new.
Oh
Yeah,
my god.
um,
But you said it's coming back. I'm a digital reader largely,
yeah,
but it doesn't exist out there somewhere digitally, or you're just talking about print. It's like out.
yeah. Well, then they say, yeah. Then look to Kickstarter as the year goes on, because we're planning
Okay.
one now.
We'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, what's number 3?
It would be a straight up tie between either Superman Birthright, which is
Okay,
my
great story. Great
12
story.
part origin Superman story, or the more recent Superman Last Days of Lex Luthor, which
Oh, yeah, okay.
I think is the best thing I've ever written so far. I think.
Ooh.
I am very proud of that. It's Brian Hitch and Kevin Nolan, David Barron on
Okay.
colors. It came out, I was going to say, it came out last year, but not really. It came out like 2.5 years ago, the first issue, and then the second issue, for reasons beyond my control, didn't come out for like another year and a half. So,
That's right. I mean, yeah, I was gonna say production, right? Just weird stuff, I'm
yeah,
sure.
so
That's
it is in
wild. Okay.
hardcover. That's out of,
Yeah.
it's easy to find. Just
Yeah.
ask your retailer, but that may be the best thing I've written so far. So
Oh,
I think that's my desert island stuff.
now I have to read it. Oh my
I would
goodness.
encourage you to read it.
Well, You're the boss.
That
So I guess I'll have to. But holy cow, this has been incredible. Tell me about. I know you are. Are you largely full time DC? Because that's what we talked about when we met.
pretty much, yeah. I mean, there's
Yeah.
I not doing Marvel stuff so much right now, but I am doing a project for a company called Alpha Clash, which is a collectible
Okay.
card game company
Okay.
that's also getting into the comic book realm. And if you go and check Kickstarter for a project called Rising Empires,
Okay.
there's a Kickstarter for the comic series I'll be doing for them, which I'm really excited about. So thank you for
Gotcha.
helping me get the word out on that.
Yeah, you
Um,
bet. No, and it'll go in the show notes as well. So yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and then by
And
and then yeah,
yeah.
after that, it is Justice League Unlimited. It is Batman and Superman World's Finest. It is Action Comics starring Superboy, The Adventures of Superman when he was a teenager. It
Yep.
is that's got is well, Batman and Robin Year One just finished. But
Oh,
there's other things coming. What else have we not? Flash. I've been doing an arc on Flash. Um, I know there's other stuff, but some of it we have not announced yet, but should be able to announce soon. But dude,
gotcha.
that is a lot of work.
Yeah, my gosh, you just absolutely crank. And you're based out of LA, so you work remotely,
Yes.
obviously. But I
Yeah.
mean, it's that kind of industry now, so everybody is everywhere.
Yeah.
So God, that is so awesome. And I will plug all these in the show notes. I also wanted to compliment you, as I'm sure I did, the that 4 issue complete history of the DC universe
Thank you.
was mind blowing. I mean, I bet I didn't know a tenth of that because I was going through a real DC kick
Hmm.
after Superman because I was so in love with that film and I still am. But
Yeah.
I tend to drift back towards Marvel. But then we have things coming up, and I love James Gunn stuff. So yeah, I will. It'll never be far from my heart. So well, cool. Yeah, I will get all this stuff, and of course, I have your website, so I'll drill down and
Great.
get more stuff into the show notes so that people can point in your direction. But this has been absolutely incredible, Mark. Thank you so much
My pleasure.
for
Anytime.
yeah for spending some time with me. If you're listening to this on our Patreon, thank you for being one of our Patreons. If you're watching this on YouTube or listening to it on one of our network feeds, please visit patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite for all of our interviews and all of our great bonus content, like the Spotlight and my wonderful guest today, Mark Waid. Mark, we'll see you out there.
Take care.
All right.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.